according to our Chinese history textbooks, America's first big financial crisis broke out just because too much freedom in market. And after the president, yes,
Roosevelt, okay.
Yeah, and he took a lot of policies and to regulate the market, and the result is your economy recovered. So how do you explain this?
Yeah, your textbooks are wrong. But don't feel bad, because all the textbooks in America say the same thing, and they're wrong too. No economist, and I challenge the economists here in the room, no economist in America, or very few economists, people like Paul Krugman don't count, but no economist, serious economist, believes that. So Milton Friedman, there's a famous book by Milton Friedman and Schwartz, I forget her first name, that looked at it's called The Monetary History of the United States, that looks very carefully at the Great Depression, at the causes of that big financial crisis. And they unequivocally say that the financial crisis of the 1920s and 30s was caused by bad Federal Reserve policies. They blame the Federal Reserve, and then, once the Federal Reserve set things in motion, the government did everything wrong. So Hoover, who was president, raised taxes when he should have lowered them. Smoot-Hawley, which was this massive trade war that the United States instigated around the world, was devastating for the economy of the United States and the rest of the world. And then FDR came into power. In 1933, January 1933, FDR became president. Unemployment was, I can't remember the exact number, 15% or something. In 1938, just before the breakout of World War II, unemployment was still 15%. GDP hadn't grown. FDR did nothing to help the US economy. From an economics perspective, FDR was one of the great disasters of American history. The US economy only grew after World War II in 1945, when government shrunk because it stopped all the defense spending, it deregulated, they cut taxes, and then the economy started growing post-World War II. Now, in 1941, unemployment was very low. Why? Because you take the male population and you send them overseas to fight, and you take the women and you put them in factories to build tanks, and you don't have unemployment. But standard of living in the United States went down during World War II because wars are bad for the economy. That's another thing you probably learned, that wars are good for economics. But wars are bad for economics. Terrible. Blowing things up doesn't help the economy. You know what? There's a fallacy in economics that was identified by a guy named Bastiat in the 19th century, Frenchman. It's called the broken window fallacy. And this is what it says, right? Things are slow in the neighborhood. The economy's not growing. So you give a little boy a rock, and he throws it through the baker's window. This is great. The window's shattered. Now we need to fix the window. So we have to go and get a new window. And the guy who makes windows gets a job, and he has work to do, and he goes and he hires somebody to put the window back in. And we say, whoa, this is great. We created economic activity. This is stimulus. Whoever asked the stimulus question, this is economic stimulus, same thing. But all you have is the window you had before. So you didn't gain anything. What's the fallacy? The guy who had the money, the baker, whose window was broken, had money. He would have bought another furnace with it. He would have invested in a bank or another business. It would have grown somewhere else, and you would have gotten more products, not just another window that you broke in the first place. So, war is a broken window fallacy, but the whole Great Depression is a myth. FDR was one of the worst presidents America ever had, except for he was a very good war president. But from an economics perspective, he was terrible. We're still suffering. The reason we have this unfunded liability is because of FDR's Social Security, which is a pyramid scheme. Sacrifices young people for old people. That's all it does. The reason we have this crisis, you could link directly to regulations passed in 33 and 34, bank regulations that distorted the financial markets. The S&L crisis after crisis can be linked to the policies of FDR. So, history books are wrong.